Mary,
Oh,
hi. How
hi.
are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Very excited with my face. People don't need to see that. Whew.
Good, good. I'm glad we got to do this. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, and you. Well, thank you for having me on. Like, I'm very excited to chat to you today.
No,
And I hope you're not too
yeah.
hot. You're in London, aren't you?
No, so I'm in Newcastle right now, but it's still
Oh,
boiling. So I'm
okay.
just like, oh,
Yeah, I know.
I'm like
I've
trying to
just,
like,
I know. I've just turned my fan off. So, but if I'm really red by the end of it, that's why.
no worries. Hey, Cynthia. Well, yeah, thank you so much for joining me for this evening.
Of course.
Wherever you're joining from, if you're catching the replay, because I know I've got a lot of people back home in Denver, catching this, but I'm live here in the UK with Samantha as well. I'm super excited for today's guest, and thanks again for joining me for another High Achieving Hustlers every Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm always looking to add more value to all of you young professionals and entrepreneurs out there. And I'm super excited about Samantha. So I actually got some messages and some DMs about you. People
Oh,
were super impressed with all of your credentials, and just really excited to learn more about mindset and success. So Samantha is a mindset and success coach, helping high achieving female entrepreneurs release the mindset blocks that's holding them back from the next level of success and their income. Her own battle with self-doubt and never feeling good enough is the reason why Samantha is especially passionate about supporting women to create the feeling of success from inside, to break free, and the constant search for external validation. Samantha is trained in neuro-linguistic programming, which is NLP, emotional freedom technique, which is EFT, and clinical hypnosis and life coaching. So thank you so much, Samantha, for being here on this Q&A today.
oh, you're welcome, Monique. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So let's dive right in. First of all, can you tell us a little bit more briefly about, your journey and how you got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give you the short version because you haven't got one note. But basically, as kind of you just read out there, like I used to really have a lot of self-doubt. I had a really loud inner mean girl. Nothing I ever did was good enough. I was always really hard on myself, like a massive people pleaser, always worrying about people's judgments and fears. And I was a real high achiever. So I was always pushing and hustling, and basically to the point that wherever I was wasn't good enough. So it didn't matter what I was earning or what I was doing, I wanted that next goal. I was kind of stuck on this constant hamster wheel, this drive of trying to find this feeling, which I now know needed to come from the inside. But at the time, I had no idea, and I kept thinking, okay, if I do that job, or if I get that car or that house, then I'll feel successful. Then I'll feel like I've made it. And then it reached a point where actually my body obviously kind of thought, you know what, I'm not really happy with how you're living your life.
Yeah.
And I was kind of forced to stop through chronic illness. And as part of my journey, getting my health back to where it is now, like I really had to readdress the way I was living my life. So I had to look at my people pleasing. I had to learn to put myself first and to say no and to have boundaries. And, the biggest thing was also being able to understand that what I didn't determine who I was. So it was kind of being able to separate that, which was massive for me. So coming from a place of still having goals and dreams and wanting and like ambitions, but they're almost like, I'm good where I am, but I want to do these things because I know I'm capable of it, rather than having that sense of like, oh, well, I need to do that because then I'll feel worthy of the person that I am. And basically that, then I saw the impact that working on your mindset and dealing with your emotions and clearing limiting beliefs just changed my life around, really, in the fact of I was just so much happier. And I never really taken time to, and because we're not taught growing up, are we, really, to take notice of your thoughts or really do as much of your mindset. So then that's when I retrained, and I've been working as a coach the past 5 years, and then set my business up about just over a year ago. So it's been, a really fun journey. And that's why I'm so passionate about supporting others, because I see a lot of women in the same place that I was. And that's not to say that like my mindset is completely fixed, because there's no end point, but I've worked on it enough that when things do pop up, I can obviously recognize it and then kind of work through it, rather than being caught in those traps.
Thank you. That's so inspiring. And I'm really inspired by your story too, because I see a lot of parallels even with my own story. Like I got to a point where I felt like I had everything that society said I needed to be successful, but it never felt like it was enough. So I'm super excited to learn from you today too.
Thank you.
Um, so I always tell my clients that what got you here isn't necessarily going to help you get to where you want to go,
Yeah.
and hit those higher levels. Can you speak a little bit about how you have to work on creating that internal success first to take it to that next level?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the first steps is getting clear on what's holding you back. So, you might have heard that sort of new level, new devil. And sometimes it can be the similar sort of beliefs or patterns popping up, but in a different way. And the way I kind of see it is it's a bit like the layers of an onion. You have different things to peel back. And it's not that the work you did before wasn't relevant and it didn't help you, but it just means that in order to reach that next level of success, you're being, like you said, like you can't, you have to change. Something else is being demanded of you. It's a different environment. You need a different version of yourself. And that situation can therefore then just basically highlight that next level of the inner work that you need to do. So I think really being able to understand and get clear on, okay, well, what do I view success as? And what are the beliefs that could be holding me back? And that might be that you don't feel good enough, or you don't feel worthy, or it might be, sometimes as well, this is a big one and something that I had, that we can say that we want that next level. We can be like, our conscious mind can be saying, oh yeah, I want to go for that goal and I want to do this. But actually underneath that, we are scared of it for whatever reason. And it might be that, oh, if I'm that successful and have that much money, people won't like me, or, we don't feel that we're actually deserving of that level. So then I kind of always say we can't trust our conscious mind, because our conscious mind will say things, but actually we operate from our unconscious. So we have to understand what is happening at that level, because if we don't, what will happen is we'll be telling ourselves we want to go for that level of success and that next jump and keep moving up. But actually, if somewhere underneath, for whatever reason, we don't want it and we're fearing that success, which actually I see a lot more. I think a lot of times when people think that it's the other way around, but actually a lot of the time I think people are afraid of what that success will mean or what it will bring. And I had to work on that myself, because otherwise we're going to self-sabotage, we're going to push it away, and we're not going to take the action. And then all we end up doing is kind of beating ourselves up because we're not doing what we say we want to do, but there's always a reason for it. And that's something I always say to my clients. If something's not working or there's kind of resistance, it's just showing us, okay, well, there's a reason behind it. We just need to understand what that reason is. That is definitely one of the areas. And the second one is kind of coming back to what we've already been saying about making sure it's your version of success. Making sure, okay, it's not the success you feel you should go for. Like you were saying, Monique, like from the outside world, it was like this kind of, tick box of what success looks like. But it didn't feel good, because maybe actually that's not really what you want. So I think we can get caught in the trap a lot of the time, especially as women, of thinking, oh, I must go for that. Like that's the kind of expected next level. So really kind of checking out, like, hey, what is my reason behind this? And also, again, making sure that the success isn't to fill a feeling. So you're not caught in that story of, oh, well, when I get this, then I'll feel that, because you won't. You'll get there. And it's why people are multimillionaires and it still isn't enough, because it's not the external that isn't kind of where we're going to get that validation. It has to come from within. So I think for me, they're the really key areas to start to think about and address and to look at and understand.
Yeah, no, that's really great advice. You hit on so many good points here. So I hope that, everyone tuning in is taking notes, or if you're catching the replay. There was one thing that you said in particular where you were talking about how, like, if you start to like really like drive all your thoughts to that one thing, it's almost like you think about that negative thought, and that's kind of like what starts to show up. And that's the same thing that I tried to tell clients too, is that, like, everything that you resist or you judge, you block that as well, and so you really have to think about how that shows up for you.
100%.
Yeah, totally. What would you say is the most important element of mindset work? Because I feel like, even some people are just like, oh, I know the mindset stuff already. Can I just skip that?
Yeah. I think for me, it's actually continual awareness. Because I think we can do like a lot of surface level mindset stuff which, don't get me wrong, is really helpful. So, reading the personal development books, listening to podcasts, YouTube videos, all of that is really, really great. But it is only touching one level. Like, I don't believe that you can really tap into your deeper levels on your own, because your mind doesn't want you to. And I think it sounds really simple and really basic, but a lot of the time we are kind of running on autopilot, and we are having the same sort of thoughts and feelings and beliefs every single day, but we're not really tuning into it. And obviously things like journaling can really help with that. But really just starting from the beginning, kind of thinking, okay, well, what actually am I telling myself? Like, you're talking about that self-talk, like our mind is always going, and obviously we can't possibly know every single thought. Yeah. But it's really starting to tune into, if you kind of feel down, well, that's coming from someone. So track it back. Like, what were you saying to yourself? What was that self-talk? What was your inner mean girl saying if you suddenly were going to go live and then you decided that you didn't want to? So kind of really starting to bring those unconscious thoughts to the surface. And I often get clients to do like a thought diary. So kind of maybe having, like 3 times a day, just checking in, like when you first wake up, sort of lunchtime, evening, and just kind of brain dumping. So slightly different to journaling. It's just literally, okay, what are the thoughts? If I was going to tell someone, write down, what are they? Because why that's really great. I remember when I first did this, I was really shocked with how much I worried about everything and just how mean I was. Like, I never would have said that I was a worrier. And almost every second thought was like worrying about what if this and what if that. And I, sometimes you can look at things and think, yeah, I know I had that. But a lot of the time it can be a great exercise to think, oh, wow, I had no idea that my mind was going down that path as often as it did. And yes, it can be a bit overwhelming when we first see it, but ultimately I always say they're happening whether we're aware of them or not. But if we don't notice them, we can't change it. There's that kind of bit of a cheesy saying, but they kind of say, if you need to see it in order to not be it. So I think that is one of my biggest tips that sometimes we can take for granted. It's just that daily awareness of where our mindset is, and also whether it's our friend or our foe. Is it supporting us most of the time, or is it working against us?
That's so true. I'm so glad you hit on that too, because like what I always bring awareness to is like some of my thoughts, right? And I always try to stay out of the world of realistic. And I feel like even like in society we get addicted to like things that are like, societal norms, or even like parental influences, or what our friends would think about us, and so like I feel like people really get really addicted to that whole thing from society about like, oh, that's not realistic, right? And it like kind of puts you in that like that mindset too. And like people need to start to realize like, it's also like shaping your inner workings, if that makes sense. Kind of like going back to that as well. So for some people, I know you mentioned surface level mindset work. I know affirmations might be considered in that category too. How come affirmations don't work for some people?
So I think, like, obviously with everything, like affirmations, meditation, journaling, any kind of the daily habits you can bring in, mindset isn't like a one size fits all. So certain things some people will gel with and certain things they won't. And I'm always, very passionate about saying, well, find what works for you, because otherwise it's just going to be a chore, it's going to be a tick box, and you won't connect with it. And I think the biggest thing for me, and I've spoken about this before actually, it's a great question to ask, is I often find that if affirmations aren't working, one, it might be that you are saying different ones every single day, so you're not really giving yourself enough time to channel that into your subconscious. But I also, and I think as well, because I fell into this trap when I first started doing them, was I was just reading words on a piece of paper, but I didn't connect with the emotion. And in order for our subconscious to start buying into it and really take notice, we need to have that emotion. So I think for me, you're much better to have just a couple of affirmations each time, but really repeat them, really kind of keep telling yourself them, but also connect with it, like know how it makes you feel, like visualize yourself, like if that affirmation was true, like how would you be showing up, like what feelings would you have, what kind of words would you be telling yourself, and really kind of go into it in depth, because that is what really helps us to start to believe it. Because I think a lot of the time when we first start saying them, we also don't, we have a lot of yeah buts and objections, and
Yep.
so sometimes it feels uncomfortable, so we think, oh, I can't do that. And I definitely used to roll my eyes at affirmation. I was like, oh yeah, whatever. But
Yep. Yep.
I was like, yeah, not for me. But then I
Mhm.
realized we're saying affirmations every day. Like if you're always telling yourself that you can't do something, or
Yeah.
you're not as good as them, like that's an affirmation. You're just
Yeah.
not saying it in the kind of structured
Right.
way. So it's actually, well, as soon as I kind of realized that, I was like, oh, okay. So actually, maybe if I made the conscious choice to say things that are more helpful, let's
Yeah.
see how that goes. And
Exactly.
so yeah, I think that's my biggest thing, just making sure that you connect with the emotion and it's an affirmation that you actually want. Again, it kind of comes back to, if you're focusing on something that you feel that you should have, then you're not really going to connect with it, because somewhere deep inside it's not aligned with either where you are now or maybe like your values and things. So it's definitely working on, you know, the affirmations that work for you, rather than like taking someone else's, because that
Exactly.
affirmation got them to that next level of success.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's really great insight. And I just love what you said about like, really just thinking about like, you're probably saying things to yourself regularly already, right? It's just not
Yeah,
in the the positive context, right? And I feel like if you're, for any newbies in the group or in the audience kind of watching, I think even just starting out, just starting to like start to pay attention to your language, like notice the
yeah,
patterns in what you're saying and just change those words from like I can't to I can.
yeah.
That would probably do wonders as well.
Yeah, massively. And one thing I changed was, oh, I have to I get to,
Oh,
because
I love that.
instantly, like I'd be saying things about stuff that I really didn't mind doing, like, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And
Mhm.
just by saying, oh, I get to do this, it's kind of reminding me of one, it's often
Yeah.
a choice, but it just feels so much nicer.
No, absolutely. 100%. Um, what do you feel is the number one thing that holds most people back from going for their goals?
I would definitely say fear of failure.
Yeah.
I think it comes up massively, and that can be, the beliefs around that fear of failure can be different for everyone. But you know, it could be that you feel like if you fail, you're not going to be good enough, or people are going to judge you, or, but I think that's why a lot of the times we can procrastinate,
Hmm.
because you know, ultimately, if we say we've got a goal and we think, I'm going to do this, and actually we just procrastinate, and then we end up kind of doing it in a really short space of time, we've got that, if it doesn't work out, we can say to ourselves, we can kind of justify it and think, oh well, it's because I didn't have much time.
Hmm.
Whereas if we give it the time that it deserves, and if it doesn't work out, we tend to then make it about us. It's like, oh well, people
Yeah.
didn't sign up to that course because I'm not good enough, not because I put it together in 2 days, or you
Hmm.
know, I didn't go for that job because I didn't get the job because I'm not good enough. It's like, oh, but because my interview prep was like on the way to the interview, kind of 20
Hmm.
minutes. So we have like this excuse, and obviously we're not consciously aware of that. But I think fear of failure is massive, and I think it's because a lot of the time we believe, well, just having the word failure, like we believe it's wrong, it's a failure, and it's like it can either go right or wrong, like quite kind of black and white,
Hmm.
rather than being able to shift that perspective and think, okay, well, maybe that didn't quite work out, but what can I take from it, what can I learn from it? And I
Hmm.
often find that when our inner mean girl is very loud, that is when it's, I've failed,
Yeah.
I'm useless, I'm rubbish. So the more we can come at things from that kind of inner cheerleader, inner best friend, then if something doesn't work out, it's that constructive feedback of,
Hmm.
oh, okay, yeah, actually, maybe I could have done this, or maybe I could have done that, but I still tried, you know, and you
Hmm.
kind of celebrate yourself for trying. And that fear, the more we adopt the kind of inner best friend every
Hmm.
day, the less that we are going to be scared of failing. Because ultimately, if you're going to do something and think that if it doesn't work out, you're going to get like someone's just going to just give you like loads of abuse and tell you you're
Yeah.
awful, why would you want to do it? You know, like if it was an
Hmm.
external person, and I think we can probably all think of people in our life, whether it's at
Hmm.
school or whatever, where there was the teacher that literally berated you if you didn't do very well on a test, or the teacher that encouraged you and told you it was okay. Like
Hmm.
that is the person that needs to be controlling kind of the way we view ourselves, because that is what's going to encourage you to step out of your comfort zone, because you know that, okay, whatever happens, I'm good, I've kind of got
Yeah.
myself. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. Totally. Absolutely. Well, and I just love what you shared about like, even thinking about it as like your inner mean girl or your inner best friend, right? Just because like it all starts with you first. And I feel like, you definitely should approach failure and look at it as feedback, and you
Yeah.
learn from it. And I think that would really help too, because the one thing that you're probably going to be kicking yourself for is like, if you didn't go for that chance, go for those big goals, or try to like set the bar that high. There's something I was reading about how like especially like in the tech startup world, in the tech industry. Oh, can you hear me? It froze for a second.
Yeah, I'm still with you.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. So yeah, so like there's something I read about like in the tech startup industry about how like there's a lot of tech startups that actually fail. And there were a couple of apps that had failed. They had like multi-million of funding and angel investment raised to go in, but they failed because like they were like little common mistakes. Like one of them was an app that was a French word, but they just changed one letter. So the big reason why they failed was because no one could spell the name of it, right? And there was another one that failed because they got like funded too quickly. So they spent money on all these people and all these different things, but they couldn't actually sell the product. And what basically all these great leaders of the startups had learned was that like they basically came to this thing that was called like they called them like startup funerals, and this happened like in San Francisco in the Bay Area. And basically they would come up and they would read like you know they would read kind of like all about like the reasons why their startup would fail, and they would say goodbye to them. So there's like an element of saying goodbye to it, but here's what I learned. So taking that immediate feedback right away, and taking that immediate feedback to just basically pivot and move on to the next thing. And
I
I
love
think that yeah, and I think it kind of like goes in line with this too, because what it does for you personally is that it also helps your confidence a little bit, because it's just like, oh, I've actually done this, I've learned from it, and here's what I'm
yeah.
going to do next. So yeah, kind of just tying it all in together.
Yeah.
So on the topic of confidence, what advice do you have for people trying to boost their confidence if they are, a little bit nervous about, like going for those big goals or trying something new?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think firstly, like really getting clear on what confidence means and looks like to you,
Mm-hmm.
because if we're going to be looking at someone think, oh, they're so confident and the way they're showing up is really confident. But again, if that doesn't really fit your personality, then if you try and emulate what they have, then it might not feel right. So all you're going to feel is awkward, and that's not going to help your
Mm-hmm.
confidence. So of course, sometimes we can definitely borrow things from people, and we can think, oh, I really love how they do that, and like I want to adapt that. But it's making sure that you get really clear on, well, if I was confident, what would that look like? What's my ideal version of confidence? And I also think as well, like a lot of the time, people say like, oh, I'm just not confident. And I used to say this because my brother is very confident. So I was there, I'd look at him and think, oh, I'm not like that.
Yeah.
So therefore I'm not confident. But I'm just different. I'm confident in a different way. And there's probably areas where I feel confident and he doesn't. So I think it's remembering that we all have confidence. But a lot of the time when we are saying like, I'm not confident, what we're actually saying is, I'm not confident in this situation and I want to be. So what a lot of time I get my clients to do is think about, okay, well, where are you confident? And where do you have confidence? And that could be like with your partner, or maybe when you're around friends, like you feel really confident to show up as you are and yourself. And it could even be just the fact that, you confidently know what you want to eat every day. It doesn't have to be massive, but we all do have confidence. And then what it's kind of breaking that down and thinking, okay, well, what's like my posture like when let's say you're confident when you're around friends. Okay, well, how's my posture like? How do I hold myself? What kind of things do I think about? Like, what's my self-talk? What do I focus on? Because then what we can do is, confidence is just a state, and you can start to build it. And you have to kind of get clear on all those different elements, because again, like, if someone was sort of standing there being like, oh yeah, I'm so confident, here I am, and their head was down and their shoulders were hunched, they can saying the words, but they don't look confident. So it's kind of understanding, a bit like a jigsaw, and thinking, okay, well, what are all the elements that build that confidence in that situation, and how can I take those and start to step into them in this situation?
That's great advice. You almost have to like really embody that for yourself
Yeah.
and figure out what it is for yourself.
Yeah.
Some comments in here. Jasmine says, love that advice. Collision. Confidence is key. It's a central point. Taking so many notes. Thank you.
Good.
Good stuff. Well, so last question. Thank
Yeah.
you so much again for being on. This has
Oh
been really
no,
fun.
loved it.
So I always end these Q&As with action steps.
Yeah.
What is the one action step you would recommend for these young professionals and young entrepreneurs to do as it relates to improving their mindset?
Yeah, so I would say, like, kind of going back to more of that awareness, so getting really clear on where are you currently most stuck. Because of course, you know, if we're thinking about like limiting beliefs, we can have a few, but we don't have to work on them all straight away. It's kind of looking at, well, where are you wanting to go? Like, where's your next step? And what do you think is really holding you back? And then it's looking at, okay, who can help me? But I actually heard that kind of phrase on a Dean Graziosi podcast.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
you know, a lot of the time we think about, okay, what do I need to do? What I've got to do? But actually thinking, well, who can help me with that? And that could be like, who's written a book about imposter syndrome, for example, if that's something you're struggling with, or, you know, there's a podcast or YouTube videos, whatever it is, it's kind of starting to really identify, well, where is my biggest block? Like, what is going to stop me and be the obstacle for me getting from where I am to where I want to be? And then looking at, okay, well, how can I get support for that? Like, what are the first few steps that I can take? And then kind of going for that. You don't have to know exactly how you're going to change something, because it kind of like a journey, it evolves. But it's really getting clear on, well, what's my biggest block right now? And what could I start to do on a daily basis to really support myself with that? And Monique, I know kind of you said that you were happy for me to sort of mention so I'm running a free challenge starting next Tuesday called Mastering Your CEO Mindset. So if anyone is watching and you want to kind of really start to look at your inner mean girl, like letting go of that self-doubt, uncovering those limiting beliefs and really dialing up that self-worth, that is what my challenge is all about. So there's a link in my bio, so you can come to that. So that's another action step that you can take if you want to really start to, I suppose, gain that awareness, because a lot of the challenges are going to be really around helping you understand and unpick how those different things are showing up in your life and also holding you back with your success.
I think that's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I'll have Samantha's info here in the caption as well. I just think you hit on like so many really great points, because it's almost as if you just have to put like one foot in front of the other, right? But you have to start somewhere, and you just have to start to pay attention to like the patterns, the language, you know, what are you saying to yourself, you know, and I feel like taking action steps cure all. Like I always say, like action removes the emotion from everything, right? And I truly believe that. And action is the way that you nurture and start to reprogram your subconscious, because this is even something like I'm still working on today, and I still even notice like, my brain tells me one thing, but I know like I don't feel it, right? Constantly still working on it. Well, thank you so much for your story, sharing, and just thank you so much for sharing your story and your advice and tips today. It's just been really inspiring to learn from you. And so for the people with more questions and seeking more advice, how can they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, absolutely. So firstly, thank you so much for having me on as part of your series. Like, I have really enjoyed our conversation today, and I'm pleased that the people watching have been getting lots out of it, and hopefully the people that watch kind of on the replay will do as well. The best way is just through my Instagram. So yeah, if you want to connect with me, and then if you have any questions, just my DMs are open. So just message me, and I'm happy to kind of answer any questions and give any kind of support.
Yay, awesome. Well, thank you so much. And for everyone tuning in or watching the replay, please let me know your thoughts and feedback as always, or if you'd like me to have Samantha on again sometime. Any final thoughts from you, Samantha?
Just one really thing to say is, like, when you are starting to uncover things, like, suspend the judgment, because you know what, we all have things we need to work on. There's no perfect version of ourselves, so don't kind of beat yourself up for not being aware of it like previously in the past. Like, the main thing is, it's like, okay, I'm aware of it now, and I'm going to do something about it, and it's kind of recognizing actually it might have had an impact and kind of costs me things now, but actually that doesn't have to be the future. And really realizing that actually you are the one in control, and you can make your own choices, even getting like used to starting to make the choices of where your mind goes when you make it more of a conscious habit.
Yeah, totally. I love that. I just love that so much. I'm gonna write that one down too. And I literally just said that to somebody the other day as well, that you just have to release judgment like completely. So that's awesome.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much again. Thank you so much for everyone tuning in or catching the replay. Hope everyone has a great day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. But again, it was so nice having you on, Samantha, and I'm sure we'll catch you again soon.
Oh yeah, I loved it. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone
Have
for
a good
joining
one.
us.
Bye.
Bye.